What's up, y'all? It is about 7 p.m. Pacific time on Tuesday, Election Day, November 4th, 2025. I'm feeling upbeat. I would say more than cautiously optimistic, but less than splendid. I've been really active on Blue Sky this evening as election results have been rolling in. Once I realized that Democrats were cleaning house, I was like, okay, I'm going to pour myself a scotch and just sit back and enjoy. It's going to be a while yet until the only thing I was able to vote on in this election has any results coming in. That is the Portland Parks levy. And you damn well be sure that I voted yes on it as somebody who thinks that it is crucially important that we fund third spaces. I believe that our society's commitment to the commons is more important now than ever. But we'll see. There were a lot of conservatives who were clutching their pearls about increasing property taxes. Oh no, having to pay another $100. I think for my house it was like $96 more a year than we were previously paying for parks. Yeah, I live in like a dumpy old land trust house, so I realize some Portlanders were going to be paying as much as $300 a year. That is absolutely worth it for a membership to our parks that we all can enjoy. Anyway, before I go off on parks and our need for third spaces, let's talk about some of these election results. So Democrats won governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general in Virginia. Those are all really important races as the Virginia legislature is wanting to redistrict in order to compete with the gerrymandering in Texas. Also just really important in general. We're looking at all of these wins and the tallies are still coming in for all of these elections. Wins for Democrats are absolutely a resounding condemnation of Donald Trump and the Republicans. When those in power are fucking up real bad, you find that votes swing very heavily to the opposition. In fact, in Virginia, I believe every single county shifted toward blue. Democrats picked up percentages in every county in Virginia. The Democrat won for New Jersey governor as well, also an important race. And of course, the Hill called it for our guy Zoran Mamdani 19 minutes after the polls closed, because they had all of those early votes that were ready to just like roll out. They called it very early. They were listening to Decision Desk HQ, who I believe might have been the first one to call it. They called it way before the New York Times. Actually don't know at the moment that I'm filming this if the New York Times has even called it. All those billionaires and establishment folks still hoping like Cuomo's going to pull out a win, even though the math is like, that's impossible. By the way, did you see that Chuck Schumer was asked today if he voted for Zoran Mamdani? And he was like, I voted. Fucking resign, Chuck. Resign. You have failed us consistently this entire year. For me, I think I'm going to defer more to letting New Yorkers talk about what they are feeling with the election of their new mayor. I can say from my position all the way across the country in Portland, Oregon, New York, I'm really proud of you. I'm really proud of you that you chose to elect somebody who wants to represent you and wants to make your city work better for you all. Not somebody who's going to prioritize corruption, corporate interest, billionaire interest, the super rich, but rather regular working folks in New York. Regular residents of your city, the needs of your city, and crafting a government that will actually be functional for y'all. And I understand that that's a really big ask, and I may have some more thoughts about our expectations of politicians in subsequent videos. But for tonight, like New York, fucking y'all have your reactions. I am loving watching how people in New York are responding. And I think y'all should feel warm and cozy knowing that the entire country is like, thank you. For me, one of the races that I enjoyed so much, I try not to lean into the schadenfreude, but like, I had some. When it comes to Cincinnati, Ohio, I lived in Cincinnati briefly when I worked at the Cincinnati Zoo ages and ages ago. My dad went to the University of Cincinnati Medical School. I have a lot of affection for the city of Cincinnati. And I was real pissed to hear that J.D. Vance's half-brother, was running as the MAGA candidate for mayor in Cincinnati. And J.D. Vance really thought he was going to set himself up a little political dynasty in Ohio. And that didn't work out at all because the Democratic incumbent was reelected in what the press is calling a landslide. Or as I said on Blue Sky earlier this evening, JD, Cincinnati voters told you to go fuck a couch. You're not going to get your political dynasty. I know that JD is now crashing out over this. The New Republic's headline, actually, y'all, is J.D. Vance's half-brother suffers humiliating loss in mayoral race. God, I love it when the press is like actually factual with their headlines. When they don't mince words, when they tell it like it is. It's fine. JD will be mad for tonight and then he'll get back to what buying up land from farmers that he's making go bankrupt so that he can sell it to foreign investors. But for now, we can all revel in it. Thank you, Cincinnati. Thank you. If I still lived in Cincinnati, I would probably go to Jungle Jim's, get a bunch of international food, make myself a little feast. So however y'all want to celebrate in Cincy, go for it. Thank you. Thank you. Pennsylvania also retained their state Supreme Court justices. I was really watching this measure in Maine. Would have required photo ID to be shown at the polls in future elections and make additional changes to election law in Maine that would make it harder to vote absentee. As I've said many times, there aren't really any red states in this country. There are very gerrymandered purple states and gerrymandered blue states. The way that Republicans cheat is not by like Starlink zapping votes or whatever conspiracy theory shit Election Truth Alliance is trying to put out, but the way that they do it is through classic techniques, gerrymandering like they're doing in Texas, and classic voter suppression. Having all of these hoops you have to jump through in order to be able to vote. Things like voter ID laws, things like, how folks in Congress want to push through the SAVE Act. I mean, for right now, it's kind of tabled. But the Senate could bring it up because the House already passed it, including a number of Democrats like Marie Gluesenkamp Perez, who is just north of me in Washington State. A number of my friends are her constituents and find her very disappointing. Anyway, that law would require, if it were to ever be passed, and we have to make sure that it never gets passed, and if by some reason the Senate does push it through, that it gets challenged in the courts, it would require your name on your ID to match your birth certificate, which would basically fuck over women. Anybody who's married and changed their name, it's a blatant attempt to disenfranchise women voters. Disenfranchising voters, making it harder for people to be able to vote, and then also making it much easier for Republicans to throw out your vote afterward. All kinds of weird technicalities, rather than being like, hey, we want everybody's vote to be counted. Republicans do not want everybody's vote to be counted because they can't win if that happens, right? In a representative democracy, you should want everybody to vote, everybody to have their voice be heard, everybody have a chance to elect someone to represent them in government. That's how our system should work, but Republicans don't win under that system. So they're constantly trying shit like they tried in Maine, making it much harder for people to vote. And Maine voters, thank you, Mainers, they resoundingly quashed this issue. They said, no. I believe it's still being counted, but at this point, the measure to add all of these restrictions on voting and change the voter laws has failed. Almost 62% of Mainers voted no. There are other smaller victories all over the country. Charlotte, North Carolina elected a Democratic mayor. There's still a ton of races and ballot measures where we don't have results yet. Wyoming, Montana, Arizona, Utah, like just tons of them, Minnesota. There are elections all the time, y'all. And this for me is one of the most encouraging things. There is high voter turnout being reported basically across the board. I know a lot of people have been really focused on the midterms, and too many people are worried about like who's going to run for president in 2028. No, y'all, nobody gives a shit about Gavin Newsom and Pete Buttigieg running in 2020. Don't focus on that. We have to defend democracy right now. What's happening right now really matters. And I think the voters have seen that because turnout is very, very robust. And we know that when turnout is strong, Democrats win. Now, are all of these Democratic wins like the best thing ever? No, there's a number of establishment centrist Democrats who like, okay, but light years better than a MAGA Republican. Let's not pretend that we can't tell the difference. Incremental progress is still progress. Flipping a seat from Republican to Democrat is still a good thing. We couldn't have Democratic socialists or working families folks in every single race. It doesn't mean that we can't in the future. It doesn't mean we should be content with establishment Democrats, but we can still celebrate the seats that have been flipped, even if they're centrist. Now, we're still waiting to hear California Prop 50. I know that the entire nation is waiting on that. So for me, I will be watching those results and then the Portland Parks levy as to whether we're going to win on those issues. I'm very hopeful for both of them. But I think overall here, y'all, the big takeaway is definitely that we have to turn out and vote. We have to have a massive get out the vote movement for every election. We have to vote too big to rig, right? All of those gerrymandering and voter suppression techniques that Republicans use, when we get massive turnout, we can overcome those. Part of the issue in the November election for 2024 was that we had low voter turnout. And we learned our lesson, right? Electoralism all on its own is not going to save us, but it is a crucial component. We all vote and we make sure our neighbors vote. Everybody makes sure their voice is heard.